going on in the world interesting?
Market tank today.
Market tank today?
Yeah.
Well, that's no good. I've been trying to take a couple of days off here and there, obviously outside of the teaching gig. So I'm really not paying attention to much. Jot down 1,000 points. Did you know the Dow is actually useless? Did you learn this? Did you learn this? You're going to learn this. Maybe you'll learn it. As an index, the Dow is useless.
Is it because the Dow trades internationally?
No. No. Because it's completely arbitrary, and it's based on stock price, not market cap.
Is that the reason that it's gone down, or are you just saying something separate from the?
No, separate from it, separate
Oh,
in
okay,
general. I'm saying paying attention to the Dow is not really meaningful. So like Apple is in the Dow 30. First of all, it's only 30 companies. They are picked arbitrarily based on what some committee feels is appropriate mix of what they feel to be blue chip stocks. And the index is based on stock price, not market cap. All right, so you know the difference between stock price and market cap? Okay, so for example, the stock price of Apple is $121, and the stock price of Tesla is $403. Is Tesla a bigger company than Apple? No. But the stock price is 4 times higher than Apple. So if Tesla was in the Dow index, Tesla would have a higher weighting than Apple, which makes no sense at all. So the fact that Apple just had a stock split caused issues with the Dow index. They had to, so their technology company weighting decreased, and they had to make some changes to the index to add some more technology stocks. Apple is worth $2 trillion.
And that's the price multiplied by
The number of shares outstanding.
Outstanding.
Yes. So Apple is worth $2 trillion. So if you took 2 trillion divided by 121, you'd know how many shares have been issued. Tesla is worth 378 billion. So Tesla is tiny compared to Apple. Okay, but one slice of Tesla is worth $403, and one slice of Apple is worth $121. But really what you care about, so in your securities and investment class, you care about the size of the company, not the price of the stock. Price of the stock is actually meaningless. It's actually marketing. Why did Apple split?
For the small business.
Yeah, they think that it makes it more attractive to smaller investors.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Also, to diversify as well. Because if they're only, doing it as one, it's too expensive, and so they can diversify by splitting it. A lot of my friends actually ended up taking part in that and buying a lot of their stock.
But you should only buy it if you believe the size of the pie is going to get bigger,
Right,
right? So when you're buying,
it's a risk.
when you're buying a stock, you should say is Apple right now is worth $2 trillion. It doesn't matter what the share price is. The company is worth $2 trillion, so you have to believe that Apple will be worth $3 trillion someday in order for you to buy it. So whether the share price is 400 or 100 doesn't matter. It's how much the company is worth that matters. And you have to believe, right, that is going to get bigger. Right? So it wouldn't matter if Tesla's 400 a share or 100 a share. You just have to believe it's going to grow more than 378 billion. Do we know how much Ford is worth?
For stock,
The market cap.
20 something?
How much? 27 billion.
Yeah.
Tesla is worth more than 10 times Ford.
Have you seen anything? I just saw an article that the DOJ is set to file antitrust charges against Google in the next couple of weeks.
I
Did
did
you do
not.
anything with that?
No, I didn't hear that. Yeah, so that's a big question, right, is whether or not these huge companies now like Apple, Google, Facebook qualify as, some form of a monopoly that, are violating our antitrust laws, meaning that they have unfair advantages in the marketplace. Okay, so we left off Tuesday, right, talking about the shareholder wealth maximization model, right, and how one share equals one vote, and therefore the more shares that you own, the more votes that you have, and the more influence you have on running the company, and therefore, right, you get to make the rules. Anybody hear that one, the golden rule? He who has the gold makes the rules. That's kind of what the shareholder wealth maximization model is. All right, we discussed some of the problems that this model has, especially with other regulations in place that requires companies to report earnings on a quarterly basis, which tends to force managers who are owners into the position where they have to meet quarterly earnings projections. They always have to be aiming for projects that will grow quarterly earnings as opposed to projects that may provide better profit opportunities farther out. But the average CEO doesn't get to stick around long enough to see through long-term projects, so short-term gains are the winner. Okay, now we kind of pivoted over to different types of models throughout the world. And so obviously the shareholder wealth maximization model is kind of the Western model, but there are other models, and it depends where you are, what is kind of famous. So we did bring up state-owned enterprises, where the government has a controlling stake of companies. So that's not to say that the companies don't operate the same way companies do in the Western world. It just means that the government has control over, maybe who the CEO is, which obviously is a big thing because the CEO gets to choose all of the rest of the managers. It also might mean, though, that there might be some influence on the factors of production. The big one being access to cheap capital, right? And that's not to say that we don't have some versions of that here in the United States, right? The government is all the time meddling in private industry in the United States, usually by investment decisions, right? So usually through tax breaks, right? So if the government really wants a project to be done, they might influence the decision makers by saying, we will give you a tax break for X number of years. And the same with, and in the US, there's a variety of taxes that they can give tax breaks on. The biggest one for companies is the property tax, but then there are also sales taxes, and there are also taxes on employees that the firm has to pay on behalf of the employee. So if you look at, kind of recent examples of maybe BMW opening a manufacturing plant in South Carolina, Mercedes opening a manufacturing plant in Alabama, right? Those projects, right, where they were recruiting an international company. Obviously, BMW, Mercedes had the choice of establishing a manufacturing facility anywhere in the United States that they wanted to. And they chose South Carolina and Alabama respectively in part because of very generous tax breaks that those local governments gave to those companies. Right, so this is where organizations like the World Trade Organization, right? This is where they're trying to make a level playing field for corporations. And when you have governments kind of interfering and providing subsidies to various factors of production in order to make those companies more competitive globally, that's where World Trade is supposed to step in and say, you're breaking the rules. And so there are various examples. I know that there big arguments over the two major airline manufacturers, Boeing and Airbus. Boeing, a US company, Airbus, a European company. And obviously, being the two that the majority, and there are two prominent divisions. You have civilian aircraft and you have military aircraft. And both companies are prominent in both of those markets. And it makes it hard for both private companies and the governments to buy airplanes, right? Because they have to have a bidding process, and they know basically the only two companies that can bid on these types of projects are Airbus and Boeing. And so, of course, the United States government wants to see Boeing winning the majority of these deals. Why? Because Boeing employs a crap load of people in the United States. And of course,